the murder of Dan Markel. 9 years in the making to get to this point. This is a case where there was a hitman. There were two hitmen. They've been convicted of driving 400 miles to take the life of this law professor, someone that they had no connection to in the world. And for all these years, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for prosecutors to put on trial someone they believe was the mastermind of this plot. You know, in murder for hire cases, to me, the person most responsible for everything that happened isn't necessarily the person pulling the trigger. It's the person who says, I want this person dead, and I'll give you money to do it. And in this case, they're saying it's Charlie Adelson, the former brother-in-law of Dan Markel, the brother of his ex-wife, who was in the middle of this custody battle. So, big day in Tallahassee. So let's go right down to Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae, joining us live from outside the courthouse tonight. Well, obviously was inside the courtroom today. I could see her sitting in the gallery. Take us inside, take us to the courthouse, take us in the courtroom. What was it like for day one where finally someone from the Adelson family being put on trial for masterminding or allegedly masterminding this murder for hire?
Vinny, you could feel the anticipation culminating today. You knew today was the day so many people have been holding their breath for. The gallery was packed inside of the courtroom. Media from all over the country is there inside of a media room that's right next to this courtroom. Judge Everett, he runs a tight ship inside of that courtroom. You can't just go in and out as you please. So everyone was packed into that gallery ready for those opening statements this morning. Charlie Adelson looked confident, wearing his suit today, standing among his attorneys. He looks comfortable, self-assured. I notice he doesn't do a lot of seeming to try and tell his attorneys what to do during the trial like some defendants do. He seems to lean back and let them make the calls on objections and things like that. Then over on the left side of this courtroom, behind the prosecution, all eyes were on Ruth Markel, the mother of Dan Markel, who was seated there in the gallery as well. For some parts, there were parts she had to leave for, because we learned from her yesterday, before things even kicked off today, that she doesn't want any visual pictures of her son being deceased, even in her mind. So she left for the autopsy of the medical examiner's testimony, but she was there watching who took the stand in terms of the Adelson family. So big day in terms of opening statements. Everyone was there, and trial watchers included in those people who are here from across the country who are just invested in the twists and turns that seem to play out again today.
And seeking justice. You know, I looked at this case, and always we covered the trials of the hitman and the trials of the woman in the middle of all of this. And I always looked at those and I said, these prosecutors are arguing it's a murder for hire, but we're not putting on trial the person who's hiring the murderers. And now finally it happened. So I'm glad, because I felt from the beginning they've had the enough evidence to bring this thing to trial. So what I want to do, Julie Janae, I know you've prepared the 3 big takeaways from today. Give us the first one.
Without a doubt, Wendy Adelson on the stand. It took us a bit by surprise that she was taking the stand so early in the state's case. We kind of just gotten through with opening statements. We knew there were going to be some crime scene witnesses. That was what we were prepared for by the prosecution. But we looked in the hallway early on when the first witness took the stand, who was the neighbor, a witness, after the fact witness coming out hearing that gunshot. Saw Wendy Adelson there in the hallway with a supporter, with her attorney, waiting. So we knew this was the moment we're going to hear from the ex-wife, and now she's in a totally different scenario where she's testifying as a state's witness, essentially against her brother. How would she act? This is her 3rd time testifying. She's testified in 2019, in 2022, both for the trials of Catherine McBanawa and Sigfredo Garcia. You see, today she even changed up her look. She's definitely been scrutinized by viewers on social media for wearing what seems to be the same dress in 2019 and 2022, but here for 2023, a different look from her, and also some looks towards her brother, who's seated there in the defense table. Take a listen to those moments where prosecutor Georgia Kappelman was able to get under the feathers a bit of this witness, who was pretty poised throughout. She was very articulate. She's a lawyer herself, but there were some moments where she really got pushed, and we saw a bit of a different demeanor from her.
Did your dad get any big gifts for his 70th?
I don't remember.
So there was no big lead up and discussion about some big gift that you were involved in, at least?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I gave him a present. I hope I did.
Do you remember what anybody gave him for that birthday?
I really don't.
Was the murder of Dan Markel your dad's big gift?
I mean, that's, of course not. That's a horrible thing to say.
What about the grandchildren, getting full unfettered access to the grandchildren?
My
Could that
parents
have been
had
the
full
big gift?
unfettered access to their grandchildren always.
Do you want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
I mean, somebody hired him, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid him.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want him held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I said.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly
different
what I
today,
said
isn't
right
it?
here. No, that's not
No
right.
further questions.
Prosecutor Kappelman, they're saying it's different now because we all learned something new today. Vinny, something different about what Charlie Adelson knew or now claims to have known about the killing of his brother, Dan Markel, brother-in-law.
The back and forth between this prosecutor and Wendy Adelson was extremely fascinating to watch. And to me, the prosecutor, like, she's questioned her before, but it was almost like she's, yeah, okay, whatever. It was really interesting. Like, she asked the right questions, but she had this thing about her where she was like, to me, it was just coming through that she's like, I'm not buying you, Wendy. I think you're involved, without saying those exact words.
Yeah, the way that she was able to kind of slip in those tough questions very casually. One time she was just kind of walking away and said this was something that she wanted, the murder of Dan Markel. And while she was getting some papers and then walked back, and Wendy had to realize, no, I'm not going to agree with you, because she had been agreeing with every other question up until that point. So it really was masterful. It's a direct examination that sounds like a cross-examination. Of course, Wendy Adelson is testifying under use and derivative use immunity, meaning what she says cannot be used to prosecute her unless there's some new independent evidence that comes out.
But she can be prosecuted, and that's always unusual that someone is testifying who could potentially be prosecuted in this case. Okay, that's a big takeaway, number one. What do you have for number two?
Well, number two is the big reveal. We just sort of talked about it. This is the first time we are hearing what Charlie Adelson has to say about this entire web that we've always put up. We've always explained. The prosecution has been telling jury after jury how this has worked, but his silence has suggested that he may deny, but his response to the prosecution saying that he has receipts of giving that money to Catherine McBanawa, that there are phone calls and conversations that back up his involvement, especially after the fact. He says, yes, now, I did know that she did it, but I didn't know until after she had carried it out. Take a listen.
You will hear in detail what happened that night. You will learn that Charlie Adelson was told if he didn't pay within the next 48 hours, he or one of his family members would be next.
All right, and so to explain what the defense theory is, it's that Catherine McBanoa heard Charlie Adelson saying that I really am having an issue, my family's having an issue with Dan Markel. We would be willing to give him $1 million to go away. My parents asked me if I could put up a third of that. I told them I could. I could actually handle all of that million if he would just let my sister move to South Florida. And he says Catherine McBanoa heard that offer and then went to her friends, let them know about that offer, was talking about it, and that's why they carried this out. And it's not until after the fact that she came back to him frantic, saying they want money, they've done this for you, and now they're extorting. So the defense theory is this is extortion, not murder for hire. Wendy Adelson on the stand today saying, I had no idea.
When did you learn that Catherine McBanoa was blackmailing your brother for the murder of your ex-husband?
Today.
So he never told you?
No.
You testified in Catherine McBanoa's murder trial last year, didn't you?
I did, yes.
And she was convicted.
She was convicted, yes.
Of murder?
Yes, of murder.
Of murdering Dan Markel.
Of murdering my children's father, yes.
A crime for which she apparently is innocent because she was just a conduit for Sigfredo Garcia. Did you learn that today along with all of us?
Well, I learned that someone made that argument. I don't know whether it's true or not true.
And Vinny, you know, I tend to believe that she didn't know, especially on the day that Dan Markel was killed, that her brother could be involved because of the way she blabbed to police about his bad joke, about possibly wanting to hire a hitman, but getting her a TV, saying that it could be him, but she really didn't think it would be. I think it's possible that she is being truthful about that, but I think it's questionable as to whether or not all of this time she still had no idea.
So let's try to unwrap exactly what the defense is saying, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, because it was a little confusing because I've never quite seen an argument like this before. So I'm the killer, right? I'm Catherine McBanoa and her boyfriend or whatever he is, Sigfredo and Luis. We find out that the Adelsons have this arch nemesis who they would pay $1 million to just go away and let the kids come to South Florida, right? If they're willing to pay $1 million.
Which they were going to pay to Dan Markel.
Right, which they paid to Dan Markel to, you know, to let the kids come to South Florida. So based upon that knowledge, they said, oh, they've got money, let's kill their arch nemesis and then threaten to kill them unless they gave us the money. That's what it is?
That's what it is. That's what makes it confusing, I think, that they added the layer of not just we're blackmailing you because we're involved and it will look like you're involved, but also we're very scared. It seemed that Charlie Adelson's defense wanted to make sure the jury knows that he felt that they could make good on their threat because they tried to run him over on the road one day, came to his dad's place of business thinking they were trying to find him. So yes, that is the theory. It's a confusing one, but I think more evidence and then closing arguments might at least make it more clear as to where they're trying to go with this.
All right, we'll see how it goes. I think you expected an argument like this. I didn't, because I thought it was absurd, but we'll see if they put the pieces together. Now, your final takeaway tonight, the final of the three, and I think it involves someone whose name came up actually probably more than the defendants today.
Over and over again. Where's Donna? That's the question that I think these jurors are already asking themselves, because during openings of both the prosecution and the defense, they were hearing Donna Adelson's name, and her name more than her husband. So there wasn't like this team of parents. It's really the prosecution early on in opening said that she would make a call to Charlie, Charlie would make a call to Catherine, Catherine would make the call to Sigfredo Garcia, and that's how the process of this plot always worked, that it would start with Donna. And even Wendy on the stand seemed to eliminate herself as having any contention with Dan Markel that they were getting along. Yes, they were fighting in court, but they were amicable in the way that they were working through raising their boys, that Charlie wasn't that invested in what was going on in her divorce. He was pretty removed from it, but for what Donna was saying. And the only person that's left is Donna. Take a listen.
A review of Wendy Adelson's emails revealed that her mother, Donna Adelson, hated Dan Markel. Donna Adelson suggests in these emails that y'all will hear about several ways that Wendy Adelson could threaten or bully Dan Markel into submission, into getting what she wanted him to do. Donna Adelson even suggested offering Dan Markel a $1 million bribe to allow the relocation, and even said that this defendant, Charlie Adelson, would pay a third of that $1 million bribe to Dan Markel to make that happen.
I know we're not going to hear from Donna because of that agreement between these parties that she is not going to be taking the stand, Vinny, at all.
Yeah, because she would have taken the fifth. The final impression I took away from today was that Donna was the loose cannon. I mean, that's what I heard through the testimony and through the opening statements. It kept being Donna, 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 Donna. So I think prosecutors will need to attach Charlie to Donna. I believe they should have attached him on the defense table, but they didn't. So it's an interesting factor in all this. Julie Janae live in Tallahassee tonight, day one of a big, big case. Thanks so much, Julia. When we come back, we're going to bring in some of our experts and break down some of these big, big issues and moments that happened today in this trial. Plus, coming up next hour. In Moscow, Idaho, it's the highest profile criminal case in the nation. And now the man accused of murdering 4 University of Idaho students says the charges against him should be dismissed. Tonight, we are live from Moscow as both sides make their arguments.
I'm just pointing out that there's clearly prejudice in the record that the court can see.
Brilliant law professor gunned down.
In the midst of a bitter custody battle.
Now the victim's former brother-in-law, a prominent South Florida dentist,
accused of being the mastermind behind the murder.
Florida prosecutors are setting their sights on Charlie Adelson.
3 people have already been convicted for their role in the plot.
Now, will Charlie Adelson's own words come back to haunt him?
The Dentist Mastermind Murder Trial. Live coverage weekday mornings on Court TV.
The reason that we're here today is because the defendant in this case, Charlie Adelson, hired a hitman to kill his former brother-in-law, Dan Markel. This murder was set into motion because back in 2014, the defendant's family, the Adelson family, had a big problem. And that big problem was Dan Markel. And the solution to that problem was this defendant. This defendant was the solution to that problem because he had a girlfriend with connections to the type of people who were willing and capable of pointing a gun at a complete stranger and pulling the trigger.
So, well, murder doesn't make sense, but like explaining a murder for hire, this is how it would work, right? You want someone eliminated. You go to a middle person who has connections with someone who can get it done. You remove yourself from that direct contact with the hitman, and it's done. And the evidence that's going to be put on here, I think, will flow logically along those lines. And then today we heard from the defense, from Charlie Adelson, a completely different story. This is not murder for hire. This is extortion. And he's the victim. Take a listen.
You will see that Charlie Adelson had nothing to do with the murder of Professor Markel. Respectfully, the state does not know what happened on July 18th, 2014. On that day, 2 crimes occurred. The first one, the state knows about, and that was the brutal, heinous murder of Professor Markel. The other one, they don't know about. They're about to find out like you. Because that day would forever change Charlie Adelson's life. And what you're gonna learn is that Charlie Adelson never meets Sigfredo Garcia officially, but by all accounts, he was not a good guy. Violent, long criminal history. Sigfredo Garcia and Katie had been high school boyfriend, girlfriend. And Katie was the love of Sigfredo's life. He lived for her. And you're gonna see that Sigfredo Garcia hated Charlie Adelson. The shooter of Professor Markel, the man who murdered him, hated Charlie Adelson, according to them, his co-conspirator. On July 1st, 2014, Sigfredo Garcia tries to run Charlie off the road. He threatens him. And what you're going to hear is that on July 1, he's so upset that he calls the Adelson Institute. He doesn't realize that Charlie isn't the doctor at the Adelson Institute. He just comes in and out of the place. He thinks he's calling Charlie Adelson, but he calls Harvey Adelson. And he calls him and he threatens him. He tells him, if you keep dating Katie, we're gonna go mano a mano. I'm gonna kill you. What you're gonna learn is that in the spring of 2014, it became apparent to Katie that her dreams of financial security with Charlie were not gonna work out. You will learn that Katie heard the hitman joke. You will learn that she heard the $1 million offer and she got some ideas in her head. The state itself has called Catherine Magbanawa the mastermind. And that's exactly what she was. She gets there that night, sometime after 11. And when she gets there, she is frantic. She's upset. And he's scared because he's never seen her this way. And she sits him down and she tells him something terrible has happened. She says that a friend of hers had shot Professor Markel. She tells him over and over that she had nothing to do with it. But these people, she was talking too much. And her friend and these people learn about the problems that his family was having with Professor Markel. You will hear in detail what happened that night. You will learn that Charlie Adelson was told if he didn't pay within the next 48 hours, he or one of his family members would be next.
You know, there's a little phrase that gets thrown around a lot when you're, covering cases and analyzing them and wondering just before trial, what do you think the defense is going to come up with? This, to me, this is an example of that, right? All right, this is what the evidence is. Let's come up with something. That's what they came up with. It could work. I mean, more ridiculous stories have worked in the state of Florida in the past. You know what I'm talking about. All right, joining me tonight in Orlando, Florida, psychotherapist and CEO, Life Counseling Solutions. Dr. Janie Lacey's with us in Chicago, Illinois. Criminal defense attorney and host of Defense Diaries, Bob Motta. In Miami, Florida, host of the podcast Surviving the Survivor, Joel Waldman. And in McKinney, Texas, prosecutor, defense attorney, creator of the YouTube channel Jury Trial Mentor, Carl Steinbeck is with us. Great to see everyone tonight. Joel, first, your reaction. You've been covering this story forever. And were you ever expecting to hear this particular story?
Well, Vinny, you've been on my show, so you know I'm not that smart, but I'm also not that dumb. And I have to tell you, I was listening to Daniel Rashbaum delivering these opening statements, and I just simply couldn't follow it, just from a contextual standpoint. But then when I started to grasp what he was saying, because I don't think my mind wanted me to go there, it was just incredible. And I mean, in an unbelievable sort of way. Daniel Rashbaum kept talking about this puzzle he was going to piece together. The problem is, I don't think you can buy this puzzle anywhere. I don't think it exists. I think he just made this up out of whole cloth. But look, when you look at the evidence surrounding this case, he's doing the best job he can. He had to come up with some sort of alternative theory. It looks like they landed on this, but it is going to be a tough, tough sell for these jurors.
Yeah, and that's the operative phrase, come up with. I make fun of defense attorneys all the time because they got to come up with stuff where prosecutors are, trying to seek the truth. At least they're supposed to ethically. All right, and hopefully they do. When they don't, we attack them. Bob Motta, what did you think of what you heard inside that courtroom today from the defense, that this is not murder for hire? Well, it's not murder for hire. There was a murder, but then it was like extortion after the fact, I guess you would call it.
It blew my mind. I was not, because like you said, obviously you're dealt facts in a case, right? And he knew about the recordings. He knew what was said in the recordings. He knew about the stapled money. So if he's sitting there trying to cook up a defense, he's got to make all those pieces fit in some type of way, shape, or form. So when he starts kind of putting it together, and I'm with Joel, it was a little tough to follow initially. But when he kind of gets to the heart of it, which is essentially that Katie was extorting him, that they had killed him in order to extort him. It's quite a tale, but it takes care of the stapled money, because the stapled money's a big fact. It's a bad fact for the defense, and they're able to kind of shape it in a way that they're going to be able to counter, at least in their minds, all the recordings of where Charlie's saying these things where he's not talking about a hitman. He's talking about the fact that he was being extorted. So, look, everybody's got a job to do. And like you said, it might work. Who knows?
Yeah, I've seen more ridiculous things work. Carl Steinbeck, you've been analyzing this case and picking apart like wow. This is what I would do. If I was the prosecutor, and I'm just laying it out there, in my closing argument, when the defense can't respond, I would have my own jigsaw puzzle of the defense's theory, and I'd bring a hammer, and it still wouldn't piece together. But Carl, what did you think? Is he onto something here?
No, I think it was a complete disaster. I think this theory he came up with, it just went over like a lead bomb. The jury's not going to buy it. You might as well come up with something like he was abducted by aliens or something, and a spaceship came down and did some of this crime. It's just so outlandish. I've never seen something that laughable, really, as a defense theory on a case, especially so important as a murder case. So this whole thing is just really, after having a jury consultant team from New York City come down for probably $500,000 or $1 million, to have this kind of bogus theory come out is really shocking.
Yeah. Sometimes you have lemons, you try to make lemonade, but you need sugar. They forgot the sugar. Where's the sugar? There's no sugar in this lemonade. Dr. Janie Lacey, what he said in this opening statement is that Wendy Adelson's ex-husband, the father of her children, is murdered, and immediately her brother knows exactly who did it and who's responsible and how to solve this case. And he says nothing until today through his attorney. Is that, what is that? Do people do that? Can people be that scared?
What I was thinking about when I heard that statement is multiple things. For one, there was an interesting party, as we've already mentioned, and that is the mom. So when I'm looking at, again, I'm making some assumptions based off of what we are hearing. When I look at families that are based off of some level of narcissism traits where they prioritize their own desires before anyone else's, including, in this case, my mind goes to those poor kids. Right, so the prioritizing, wanting Wendy to be able to move closer to Miami, and the one thing that was stopping them became the object of the focus potentially. Right, so we're looking at these different stories where potentially, if she knew nothing about it, I do believe potentially what I'm hearing that there may have been some level of that going on, but it's hard to believe that at this juncture, for so many years later, that still stands true.
All right, everyone's staying with us. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at Wendy Adelson's testimony. This is this is what the case is about. It's about her children, her ex-husband, and her brother.
Well, the first thing I knew, popcorn went flying, and then I thought, oh my God, he shot him.
An argument over a cell phone and a bag of popcorn turned deadly at a movie theater.
Scott Rosenwasser told this jury this was murder.
It wasn't just one attack, and it wasn't just popcorn being thrown.
I'm looking up at this guy, and he looked like a monster standing there.
Victim to Verdict with Ted Rollins. All new Sunday night, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Were you involved in any way in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you know what was going to happen, but maybe not know the details?
I knew nothing.
Is that why you went to the crime scene on the day of the homicide?
I did not go to the crime scene on the day of the homicide.
Things got a little testy when Wendy Adelson took the stand. Now, she's a witness for the prosecution, but obviously does not want her brother convicted of the murder of her ex-husband. Let's listen to more of her testimony here, talking about the key statement that the prosecution has used in the first two trials of the other defendants in all of this. And it's about him joking about hiring a hitman.
Did your brother ever mention hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel?
No.
I'm going to turn your attention to your law enforcement interview, and I'm referring to page 25, lines 13 through 15. Send me under tab 1. So this tab here.
Okay.
All right, so page 25. Did you find it?
Yes.
Quote, it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman and it was cheaper to get you this TV. Is that what he said?
That was a joke that he made, yes.
And hiring the hitman, that was to kill Dan Markel, right? That was the joke.
That was the joke that he made in poor taste, yes.
Not to kill someone else.
No. Well, he never used his name.
Okay. Well, he's hiring you the TV because it's cheaper as a divorce present than a hitman. Who else would he be hitting with the hitman?
I never really thought about it because it was not a thing that he meant. He just made a bad joke.
Well, you repeated the joke, didn't you?
He repeated the joke.
Didn't you also repeat the joke?
To other people?
Yes, like Jeff Lacasse.
I never said that to Jeff Lacasse.
You didn't tell Jeff Lacasse that your brother got you that TV as a divorce present because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
I may have repeated that joke in the context of the TV, yes.
All right, and who is Jeff Lacasse?
Jeff Lacasse was a person I dated in 2013.
And did you tell Jeffrey Lacasse shortly before the actual murder that your brother really had looked into hiring a hitman?
I did not.
Did he buy you a TV as a divorce present?
Did my brother buy me a TV as a divorce present?
Yes, sorry, I should have clarified that. And was the TV that your brother bought you as a divorce present the same TV that was being repaired on the morning of the murder?
Yes.
I think she's inferring he also bought you an alibi, didn't he? Wow. Carl Steinbeck, what did you think of Wendy Adelson today in this trial?
She was not a very good witness for the defense. I thought she was very good for the prosecution. They got her in a number of lies. And I think the biggest thing that was helpful for the prosecution today was the fact that she never heard about this extortion racket either against Charlie. So how that would happen for that many years, we're talking over 9 years ago, an extortion happened against Charlie, and he's having to pay all this money and doesn't tell any of his family members. And the first time she hears about it is today in the courtroom through other people talking about this crazy opening statement. So it was really a great win for the defense, for the prosecution today.
Yeah, I love the way the prosecutor questioned her too. I thought it was amazing. Joel, Jeff Lacasse, is this an important witness?
100%. This is someone who Wendy dated, as she said, in 2013, and who gave information, very pertinent information to law enforcement, essentially saying that, you know, he was told from Wendy, by Wendy, that, you know, Charlie Adelson planned to carry out this hit, or at least, at the very least, joked about it. And that was a super interesting dynamic playing out today. You could see that tension between Georgia Kappelman and Wendy Adelson. People in our community noticed a lot more nervousness on the side of Wendy Adelson this time around, as opposed to the other trials where she had an air of arrogance, this time kind of being put in her place to a degree by Georgia.
Bob Motta, why do you think in her initial interrogations or questioning that she had, she mentioned her brother and she mentioned all this stuff?
I think initially because she thought that they were in the clear. You know, I don't think that she thought that they were going to be able to put this together at any point. You know, to me, the strongest thing that came out of this is the fact that you would have to believe that Charlie was getting extorted for all these years and somehow never mentioned it to Wendy. You know, I mean, that part of it just to me, and you can see that for her sitting in that courtroom, she's got something at stake now, because this isn't Katie or the two other guys. This is her brother. So, I mean, it explains her demeanor clearly. You know, and it's such a, like you said, Vinny, it's a bizarre dynamic, because she's really an adverse witness that the state had to call. You know, but like watching that play out was fascinating between the state and Wendy during that entire direct examination.
Absolutely. Dr. Janie Lacey, truth and humor, is that a real thing? Like, you could joke about something, but you really kind of mean it. Is there anything to that?
Well, there is something to it, because when we see it in therapy or counseling, it usually falls under that umbrella of being passive aggressive. So when there's some passive aggressive behavior in the context of counseling, we know that there's probably some level of truth or grain of truth, but they're just doing it in a passive aggressive way. So when we look at that truth and humor, we will put that under, and as far as counseling and therapy goes, that passive aggressive behavior with that grain of truth that will ride through it, for sure.
Joel Waldman, the other thing that struck me today, I left watching all of this today thinking, why isn't Donna being tried? I mean, Donna is the one. Donna is the one.
Yeah, well, obviously the defense, Daniel Rashbaum today, trying to pin Katie Magbanawa as the mastermind, but anyone who's followed this case, and it's been going on for 9 years and 3 months for those keeping count, everyone really believes that Donna was pulling the strings here. I mean, there wasn't a day that really went by that we know of where Wendy didn't speak to Donna and that Charlie didn't speak to Donna. I'm a mama's boy myself, but I mean, this was taking it to a whole new, and you met my mom, but this was taking it to a whole new level here. And to that point, Carl Steinbeck was on my show today, and he actually timestamped it 4:48 p.m. on October 26, 2023, when this happened in 2014, is the first time that Wendy admits to ever hearing about this extortion plot. That is just implausible.
Implausible. Great job tonight. Thank you, everyone. We'll be talking again. Dr. Janie Lacey, Bob Motta, host of Defense Diaries podcast, Joel Waldman, of course, Surviving the Survivor, and Carl Steinbeck, jury trial mentor on YouTube. Thank you so much.